Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Flash webinar series here at Hannafin. What I'm going to go over with you today is maximizing your revenue in paid search with what currently lives in your Google AdWords account. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, my name is Jacob Brown. I've been working in paid search since 2012, and I'm just coming up on my 2-year point at Hannafin Marketing. I work as an account manager at Hannafin on a variety of accounts, different types of accounts. And I'm a blogger on PPC Hero. If you're on Twitter, you can catch me at JakeBrownPPC. So we're going to go ahead with a quick agenda here, and as you can see, it's 2 bullet point agenda, so it really is a quick agenda. So the 2 goals of this analysis is to find out how well are you currently maximizing your revenue, and then from there, how can you improve and grow revenue while staying within your ROAS goals. So like I said, the first thing we're going to touch on here is how well are you currently maximizing your revenue. And we're going to focus on search here, so there will be some keyword data that we'll be putting the focus on throughout the presentation. So the way I go about doing this is doing impression share reporting. Impression share is a kind of underutilized metric within the paid search world. And so it's something that I like to share with a lot of people as to how you can utilize it and why we would utilize it. And in this case, to specifically grow revenue on what's working within the account. So step 1 is to download a keyword list with performance metrics such as clicks, impressions, costs, conversions, your total conversion value, which is your revenue, and then your lost IS due to rank. So as you can see here, we downloaded each of these metrics, and it's just a simple keyword report straight out of AdWords. So the next step is just to add the ROAS data to the sheet. It's obviously an easy formula of dividing total conversion value by cost, and that's how you can kind of take away your ROAS from each keyword. The next step then is to see how many lost impressions you're getting at keyword level. So here you can see that formula, which is the impressions divided by 1 minus search lost IS due to rank, which is really just simply impressions divided by your impression share, and then multiplying that by the search lost IS due to rank. In order to get the total amount of lost impressions you have per each keyword. The next step is to add filter and sort by your performance metric. So how I do that is I just simply sort by ROAS in this situation to see what our top ROAS keywords are all the way down the funnel to the bottom performers. And then I label these. So in this case, I've labeled them anywhere from 1,000% ROAS and over, or over 1,000% ROAS, as you can see in the label field there. Down to under 100% ROAS, and then also included in this report is keywords that had no sales. So you'll see that once I show you the next step as well. So within that next step is creating a pivot table. So as I go back from the previous slide, you can see we have the raw data sheet. We added these 2 columns, and then from there we highlight all of the raw data and create this simple pivot table. So how this pivot table is created is where we just sort by the label that we just created and then add lost impressions and impressions to the table. From there, we create our own formula within this pivot table to get the impression share. So this formula basically is impressions divided by impressions plus lost impressions. And so here you can see where we're missing the ball in terms of top performing keywords. So over 1,000% ROAS keywords in this account that we audited is seeing that they only have 30% impression share, even though these are top performing keywords. Some common errors that people use are average position and performance side by side when they do bidding methods. And they say if we're sitting in average position 1, well then obviously we don't need to bid any higher. That's not always the case. A lot of times you'll be sitting in average position 1, and little do you know that it's a broad match keyword, and you could be maximizing revenue in these ways where you're missing impressions overall. So how can you improve and grow revenue while staying within ROAS goals? Well, kind of like what I just said, the big thing is about bidding methods. So like I said, a lot of people use bidding methods based on average position. In this case, we're going to use impression data and side by side with the performance data in order to come up with our bidding method. So one formula that you can simply use within your account if you want to get really aggressive with things is use your revenue per click divided by your ROAS goal. That simply gives you the max CPC that you could be bidding on and still hit your ROAS goal. Now, a lot of people know that Google doesn't always charge you your max CPC. A lot of times the average CPC is well behind the max CPC that Google charges you. So if you want to get really aggressive in the back end of this formula, you don't always have to use your ROAS goal. Maybe you can try using a little bit lower of an ROAS number in the back end of this formula that that would be the lowest ROAS that you would be willing to take on a certain keyword, on an individual keyword. This is the way you could maximize your revenue through these top performing keywords, is using that kind of formula. And a lot of people use bidding formulas based off of modifiers, raising bids by 20%, raising bid by 10%. This is not a negative thing by any means. What I'm asking you to do here is to simply use the impression share metric rather than the average position metric when you're utilizing those type of modifiers. This extra formula on the side is just another way to go about bidding and to make sure you're maximizing your revenue. So a few other ways that we can go about doing a similar report is simply doing a day of week report in the same way we just did our keyword reports, except at the campaign level. So different campaigns might perform well on Monday, and then another campaign might perform well on Wednesday. Just looking at this at a campaign level, getting the ROAS numbers, taking those ROAS numbers, and then looking at how many impressions you're missing out on those days a week, and then putting the modifiers in accordingly is a way you can go about using this type of analysis. The next way is to do the same thing by hour of day data. So if you go into the dimensions tab, you'll notice the competitive metrics are not available for every dimension, but the good thing is an hour of day and day of week stats, they are available. So that's where you can really dig into where our impression share is at certain times of day. This really tells you where your competitors are bidding at certain times of the day. So in this particular example, our lost IS goes up in hours 3 and 4, so it could be that our competitors are seeing great statistics in those hours, and that is why they're being more aggressive than we are in those hours of the day. So making sure we're ahead of the game and ahead of our competitors by looking at our ROAS numbers side by side with our lost IS is a way that we can go about putting in modifiers for certain hours of the day, certain days of the week. So I hope this all helped you with trying to maximize your revenue. That is all from me today. Like I said, you can get with me on Twitter at JakeBrownPPC. And that's all. So thanks again for joining us.